365 days, but I treat every day like it's my last. I'm only concerned with building on the future, cause I can't change my past. Positive vibes for positive lives. She just giving you that truth and shifting your mind. It's more mental than you realize. It's up to you to take control, cause this world is cold and negativity gon' take its toll. Now we've been told any day could be your last. I'm embracing every moment and I cherish every laugh, every smile, every hug, every kiss, every touch, every person in my life that I care about and love. But wait, maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity. And make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with Celeste, the therapist. Let's go.
Hi, beautiful people. So if this is your first time watching me, if you're watching me on the replay, thank you so much for watching me. My name is Celeste. I'm a therapist from Boston. I come on, I talk to people who are doing things to empower the lives of others. And the whole goal behind me coming on is to help you shift the way you think. So I've been podcasting since 2018 of July. So we're coming up on 3 years anniversary. I wish I had some sound effects because it's so exciting, where I've been talking to so many people and so many lives are changing because people are realizing they're not alone. I'm sharing other people's stories and also just giving people other outlets that they can utilize when they find themselves struggling. So you can find my podcast on all streaming platforms. If you want to follow me on any social media platform, you can follow me at Celeste the Therapist. You can also check me out at shiftingthewayouthink.com, where I have a couple of courses that's available to you. One course is called Healing the Inner Child. The other course is called All About Love. And these are courses that are great for people that find themselves feeling stuck. And we're streaming on Facebook, Periscope, YouTube. Hey, Maurice. Hey, Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together. Thank you. You're so kind. So I'm going to introduce my guest, or have her come on to the stream and have her introduce herself to you all. And she has a big smile. I don't think she ever doesn't smile. Look at, she's smiling. Hi. See, she just smiled. She doesn't know how to not just smile. We need that right now. We really need that in our lives right now.
Yeah, thank you. That is funny. I'm like, dang, do I stop smiling? Yes. All right.
It's cool. I like it. I used to get in a lot of trouble when I was in the military because I would not stop smiling and I didn't know how not to. Yeah, but then they just gave up. It was like, she just gonna do what she do.
Right.
How are you today?
I'm well. How are you, Celeste?
I'm good. See, this is what therapists do. Look, I'm asking her how she's doing. She ain't answering me. She's gonna ask me how I'm doing because this is what she does. But it's about you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I can't complain. I'm super excited about tonight's conversation. So I'm just excited. It's just nothing but good vibes. So I love it.
Good. Can you introduce yourself to my audience, please?
Definitely. Hi, everyone. My name is Sierra Hillsman. I'm a licensed professional counselor here in the state of Georgia, as well as a national certified counselor and certified clinical trauma professional. I'm the founder of Legacy Speaks, which is an organization dedicated to mental health awareness and advocacy. So I've just been in the game for 3 years, and I'm just super excited to provide whatever wisdom and insight that I can to you.
Good. So one of the things that I always do is I like for my audience to know about my guest. Right now, you're doing amazing things, but I'm curious, growing up, did you always know you was going to be a therapist and work with people around advocacy and equality?
I honestly didn't expect to land in the therapist role. I think like my career goals shifted over time. I actually went to the University of South Florida with the intentions of becoming a speech language pathologist. So I graduated with 2 degrees, one in communication sciences and disorders, and the second one being psychology. And the only reason why I picked up a psychology degree was because one of my TAs was saying that, if all else fails, get a psychology degree. me, because if somebody with a psychology degree is more likely to get hired in comparison to somebody with a general business degree. So I was just in this place of like CYA, like, if this thing doesn't work out, at least I'll get hired by somebody because I have a psychology degree. So yeah.
So why did you pick speech pathology?
Oh, because I remember I saw like this little boy who was signing with his mom, and I was like, oh man, that's so cool. And my brother, he also had a speech impediment growing up, and I saw how that impacted him as well. So I really wanted to work with individuals or just like at-risk youth who struggled with speech. So I guess I always wanted to be a helper, to be a healer, but over time, like things kind of changed with other experiences.
Okay, so that you went to school for that. Someone was like, just throw in the psychology degree. You threw it in. Did you start working as a speech pathologist, working with kids?
No, so I graduate. Well, let me tell you how the shift happened. When you go through a 4-year program and then they like save all of like your clinical work towards the end of the year.
Yes.
And that's literally what happened. So as I was doing like my internships and whatnot, I figured out like this thing really isn't for me. But like you done already spent 4 years dedicated to this degree. So I'm like, I'm going to finish this thing out. And I graduated with 2 degrees and a minor. Yes. And I was having like a postgraduate like crisis. You know how people have midlife crises? I had a postgraduate crisis, and I was just literally like that meme, with the fox that has like the weird whiskers just like staring. Like that was just me. Just like, what am I going to do in my life? But over time, I actually moved to Atlanta to get into the entertainment industry from the back end, because I really love like highlighting amazing artists and like talent and whatnot. And I tried that, but I really wasn't fulfilled. And in 2014, my father, who had struggled with depression for a number of years.
Did you know that growing up?
That's the thing. Like, I did not know what it was. I just knew that like he was very irritable after his job loss. He was super isolated, eating his feelings and whatnot. We just automatically assumed that dad was just kind of going through this life shift. But it wasn't until 2014 when he became like suicidal and homicidal. And then in Florida, there's this thing, because I'm originally from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Shout out to anybody who's listening and knows like what South Florida life is like. But he's Jamaican. So like obviously with like classic Black families, we don't necessarily have the language for it if you haven't grown up around it. So he was having his period or experience of like with suicidality and homicidality. And that really just shifted the way that I saw mental health. I don't think we start caring about things until it actually impacts us. But like you mentioned, like, did you notice it as you were growing up? And so we always saw the signs. We just didn't pay attention to it because we weren't fully aware of it. So that's when I started doing a deep dive and trying to figure out how can I be of service to the communities that I serve. So like I mentioned, I grew up in like inner city Fort Lauderdale, and like living from paycheck to paycheck with my family and whatnot. And it's a struggle, it's hard for people in the hood to really focus on their physical health, let alone trying to get them to go see an actual therapist. So I enrolled into a clinical mental health counseling program because I wanted to become a community advocate. I had no plans, even at this point, to become an actual therapist. I was just trying to get the information so that I could take larger concepts and make it more palatable. Because, we can talk about mental health all day long, but like, can you actually roll up to the homies with like your textbooks? Like, no, you want to make sure that like you really can't, So I just wanted to get the information out there. And then, over time, I was just like, man, I think I can actually become a therapist. I think I'm pretty good at
this. Someone said, do you think was your dad aware of his depression growing up, you think?
I don't think he was until he just always knew that something was wrong. Right. I feel like I said, 2014 was a crazy year for all of us. I moved to Atlanta. I was a huge contributing factor to my family. Like I used to send like my return checks back home to help support my family and whatnot. So I kind of felt like some level of guilt, feeling as though I was like abandoning my family. And then, dealing as being like an African-American male, or just a male of color in society, when you're not working, you feel like you have like this loss of drive, this loss of purpose. You're really trying to figure yourself out. Like my dad's been working since he was like freaking 12 years old. And he's
Dang.
not worked. And so I think a lot of people fail to see that, especially when it comes to depression, right? We
Yeah.
automatically think that depression is like you can't do your activities of daily living, that you're just laying in bed, you're sleeping all day.
Well, isn't that the way the TV has shown it? And I've always thought it was like a white person's thing, because Black people, we know how to, well, we end up, working. A lot of what depression looked like is probably like just overworking, over like eating, and just overdoing everything that we do. Don't you think that's pretty accurate for our people?
That really is. Like they happen to see what's on TV and not understanding that there are multicultural implications when it comes to these disorders. And that's why it's very important when we're talking about like advocating for our mental health, understanding that we need to put things into a framework or into like a concept that reflects all cultures across the board.
Yes.
Because we forget about the fact that like depression also shows signs of irritability, mood shifts, isolation, suicidality, just, pushing people away, withdrawal, eating too much, eating too less, sleeping too much, sleeping less, So a lot of people focus on these smaller things, which are major when it comes to depression, but there's so much more.
Yeah, and high function depression, right? And also the DSM or the APA put out an apology last month because they recognized how the DSM, which is, for people who don't know what the DSM is what clinicians utilize to diagnose, does not take into effect people of color and all of the things that come along with it. I don't know have you heard about that? Did you hear about that apology that they gave?
No, I didn't.
Okay,
it's
yeah.
Good to know, because I'm gonna post
it. yeah. I'll send it to you after. But they said they're gonna do work to make sure that they get rid of it. I've always struggled with using certain diagnoses because the labeling, and it's just so much nuances that come along with it. But obviously, insurance requires it. But I do think that it's important, for people that are listening, to know that, what we've seen on TV is not like the end of it. Like there could be things going on, especially the irritability and the anger. I think that anger, unfortunately, is one of those things that just are all like acceptable, especially for Black males. Being angry is more acceptable than if they cry. No one's going to question really their anger, but they might question why you're crying. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And then it's so funny that you talk about that, because that kind of leads to like healthcare disparities, right? So if we as people of color are going to our primary care physicians, or maybe even to a clinician that may not have that multicultural competency, they might automatically think that this person may be struggling with anger management rather than looking at them from a lens of possibly having depression. So misdiagnosis is an issue right there.
Dang, that's good. And for the little boys, the young boys as well. I worked in a hospital, a children's hospital here in Boston, and I would see the way the labels took place for white kids and Black kids. Mm-hmm. And with the Black kids, there was this anger, they need to be hospitalized, or they're going to end up in jail. Like the language that was utilized for the same behavior looked completely different. And I think about how it really starts as a child, whether it's happening in the hospital or the teacher or whatever, and anger, people aren't looking at like maybe there's more going on there. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, like in your work with kids and families.
Yes, I do mental health assessments in the psychiatric hospital as well. And I think a lot of people also fail to remember or even know about a disorder or a diagnosis called like adjustment disorder, right? And so like automatically, I think, and the reason why I bring this up, and the reason why I bring this up is because, with everything that's going on in the pandemic and whatnot, kids really aren't doing that great. Just human beings altogether. We're really not doing that great.
Tell people adjustment disorder for people that aren't aware of it.
Yeah, so adjustment disorder is basically these mood swings or changes in mood and in behavior as a result to a life change or a threatening of a person's daily routine. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that the person is like super angry or maybe even dealing with depression. They're just trying to figure out or how to navigate their emotions associated with this change.
Yeah, literally, that's what's happening for a lot of people. And then I just think people are giving these labels, and then that becomes their identity. Your words matter, and I think when people say, "Well, this is how you are," and especially I think as kids, not really having a lot of insight, they just kind of know what they know, and they internalize everything. And I only work with adults full time, but I've heard them talk about these stories of being labeled as a child and how they just kind of put themselves in that category, and that became their life, which is really hard.
Definitely.
Go ahead. You wanted to say something?
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, and this is why a lot of people of color struggle, or one of the reasons why we struggle with going to a therapist, because we feel like we're going to be slapped with
That's
a
so
label
true.
or a diagnosis.
That is so true. Thank you for bringing that up. Oh my gosh, that is so true. I've heard that before too. And I think I ended up getting a lot of people, because people listen to me and watch me, but even like people that never watched me or listened to me, that was some of their fears, around that. Some people pay out of pocket because they're afraid that insurance, and I'm like, oh my God, you got insurance. Won't you use your insurance? And, it's hard for me to see how, and we want to stop things being stigmatized. But then when doctors are telling me that if they find out that I'm depressed, I might lose my license. And I'm just like, how is that possible? So I think some of the systems doesn't allow people to not see it as something that's stigmatizing either. I don't know if you've ever thought about that.
I have definitely thought about that. I have friends who have like personally asked me, especially if they're looking to rise up the ladder in corporate, or maybe pursue like government related positions, or like even I have a friend who's a police officer, like super concerned about like all of these other positions that he wants to go for in the long term. They just don't want to have that on their record. And I'm just like, do what works best for you. And I really don't know what to tell you, but it either is you run it through your insurance and have this on your medical record, or you just start paying out of pocket.
I know, and so I hope, my hope for people that are listening to this is that even if you choose to do it out of pocket, don't not get help because of what it may look like on the outside. Because just because you can't see what's happening internally, it's still happening, whether or not you want to acknowledge it's happening or not. And that's something I try to stress to people, is that the process still happens. Whatever it is that you're going through, if you're running away from it, you can't never run away from your mind, right? So you're not really running away from anything. You're just prolonging the inevitable, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, just having this conversation just shows that there's so many different options.
So now your dad was struggling with some depression. Then you're like, you know what, I'm going to enroll in school. So you enrolled in school. You clearly graduated. Did you enjoy the master's program over there in Florida?
So I ended up moving to Atlanta around the time. So I went to University of West Georgia out in Carrollton, Georgia. For all my Georgia people, y'all know what Carrollton is like. It is in the boonies. So I was kind of like living this double life, like, hot Atlanta, but then like driving all the way out west, like as if I'm going to Alabama, and I'm just like, oh goodness, this is this is putting too many miles on my car.
I lived in a small town in Georgia, so I know. In Jessup, Georgia, it's like near Savannah, so I already know what you mean.
I'm so glad that we connect on that, because a lot of people are like, you live in Atlanta, you live in Georgia. No. And I'm like, this is Atlanta and the rest is Georgia. Like Georgia is so rural. Okay. So when we have like those election conversations and people get mad, like what y'all doing up there? I'm like, this is Atlanta and this is Georgia.
I got you, girl. I'm with you.
So yes, to answer your question, I absolutely loved my clinical mental health counseling program. I don't think a lot of people understand how much your life changes, because you literally have the language for all of the stuff that you experienced over your time. It's just like you're having another awakening. Like I said, I had like a midlife crisis, or like a postgraduate crisis. Well, I was having another crisis in grad school, and I'm just like, who am I? Like, what is going on here? So I think that's just a beautiful journey for anybody who is currently in their mental health counseling program. I definitely encourage you to just fully lean in. I know for my program, I was required to go to therapy so that I can know what it's like being on this side as well as on the other side of things as well.
That's dope. They didn't require that. I went on my own, but that's pretty dope. And so having that experience, I'm sure that was helpful for you.
Yes, it definitely was. And I was talking to like my younger self, like, dang, I wish I would have went to therapy. I think a lot of students fail to understand, especially like students of color, especially if you're like first generation, they have no idea what the campus counseling center is. Like they know where it's at, they know that it's available, but because we didn't grow up with having access to therapy or knowing what it was like, we really don't necessarily actually like take advantage of that. But for any student out there, whether you're in undergrad or you're in graduate school, just know that your tuition is paying for it. So please utilize those therapeutic services.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, like your tuition pays for the counseling center. So make sure that you are taking full advantage of that. Yeah.
All right, good. So yes, take advantage of that. So now you graduate, and what did you decide to do after your graduation for work?
So I transitioned into admissions at first. I worked at a psychiatric hospital and I was doing intake, not only in person, but over the phone. So a lot of crisis stabilization in the hospitals, like individuals are coming in, they're either like suicidal, homicidal, they're, under the influence of a number of substances, also dealing with psychosis. Maybe they haven't taken their medication for quite some time. And so a lot of solution-based therapy, a lot of brief therapy in that moment, and even also referring them to a number of resources all over the state of Georgia.
Nice.
And then I slowly transitioned into working into agency life, which is what I currently do, with substance abuse, residential treatment. I currently work with individuals that have matriculated out of prison, jail, or homelessness, helping them to work through like a 6-month program. And the reason why I say like a 6-month program, because individuals can stay even after their 6 months are up. They can transition into our transitional housing. And so it's just helping them with relapse prevention, also giving them job readiness skills, helping them to find sober supportive housing, as well as sober and supportive employment as well. So giving them like a second chance. We even have individuals who have completed the program and may have relapse. It's okay. They're always welcome to come back. They just have to go through the entire program all over again.
That's so dope. Now, given the fact that you come from the hood, what was it like? Like, I know my experience because I came the same way from you where you came from. So I'm, from the hood, and I got this little degree, mental health degree. What is it like for people?
Just a little degree.
I mean, because then everybody think you diagnosing them. Like, I promise I don't want to diagnose you. What was it like, being around people and they're like, Sierra, what? Like, and you be trying to spit that knowledge to them. What was they saying to you?
Like the homies, they be like, you always think you know something. But like, I've always kind of been like that. I'm just a helper. So I feel like God really did lead me to this position. Like this is something I ultimately was about to do regardless. I love the opportunity to be able to collab with other people and create events, especially now with us being online. It's nothing to just do like a quick pop-up or to do like a quick event via Zoom or anything like that. And so I'm glad that I'm not only helping my immediate family and my friends. Like I tell them, hey, I can't be a therapist, because I got code of ethics to follow through, like.
And I'm gonna be telling you what it is too. So you don't want to come to me anyways, because I'm not gonna be gentle with you.
Exactly. You got to build therapeutic rapport with other people. You got to ease, the first 3 sessions, get a feel for the client. And then after that, it's like, you can just take off. But like with the friends, I always have to let them know, like, I cannot be your personal therapist. I'm not about to have my license taken for you.
Sorry, me and Sierra be going through the same stuff. I feel seen.
Yes, because especially with your parents and whatnot. So like me and my mom, we have this thing, and she's just like, you're not my therapist. We're just having a conversation. We're just having a conversation. That's what she says. We're just having a conversation. I'm like, okay, mom. All right. Okay, girl. Whatever you want to call it. Okay.
My husband be like, I'm not your client. I said, I never said you were. This is just how I talk. I'm all defending myself. I'm sorry. Okay. You get the struggle, like it's the struggle. They think like we're just embodied, like our whole being is therapy. And it's like, no, it's not.
It's not.
I'm just trying to live.
Just trying to be a regular human being, okay?
Oh God. Okay. I'm trying to get this back on track. So now you're a therapist, and it sounds like from what you're saying, you've always like been that person to kind of talk about different things. You may not had the language. And I think that's probably what makes you really great, is that you've already had it in you. Like part of your purpose was aligned with helping people. And now you're kind of doing it in a therapeutic way, which is amazing. I'm sure you're able to see that.
Yeah.
Nice.
I love it. It's so crazy because, I think there's this assumption that you have to be one way. I think, as therapists, or especially as therapists of color, we can be our full authentic selves. We can bring our Blackness into the room. And we could just, those memes that are floating around are just like, I really want to make sure that I have a Black therapist, because when I say on God, they know what I mean. Or when they say that I'm pressed, they know what I mean. Like, we don't have to code switch. We can just be ourselves in a professional manner, or like all of those things that we deal with, like the microaggressions or our hair, how we show up in spaces and whatnot. I think it's just the beauty of just having us in the field.
Yeah. I just wish there was more of us. Oh my gosh. How do you, so she's saying ladies, but I'll let Sierra, this is Sierra's show. Sierra, how do you turn off your therapist hat when you're talking to friends and family?
That's a really good question, because like when I'm with friends and family, I don't even see myself as a therapist. I'm not like case conceptualizing my family. I'm just literally just spending time with them. I think what we have to do is challenge our family members to stop seeing us as therapists in this moment, because like I'm still that daughter, I'm still that best friend, I'm still that home girl. You're just because I'm offending you in this moment, I'm challenging you as a friend, you're automatically assuming that I'm coming from a place of being a therapist when I'm just trying to be a good friend.
Yeah. I 100% agree. And I think for me, people are in spaces where they're not ready to change. And that's fine. Like I don't judge, I don't say like, you got to do this. I don't feel they're not paying me to hear my opinion. So I never overstep my boundaries when it comes to certain things. So yeah, I think exactly what Sierra says is more of the people in our lives, being able to see us as who we are. So I want to talk about how you started Legacy Speaks. Now you started speech pathology, and then you transitioned and was like, I have a crisis. This is for people who are like, in this, oh, well, I already did school, I don't know what to do, and then stay where you are because you're afraid of change. I'm sure you were afraid of change, but you did it anyways. How did you develop Legacy Speaks?
Yeah, so I developed it from a place of need. So I saw a need and wanted to fill it. I originally started off with a YouTube channel. So during my clinical mental health counseling program, like I said, I took the information that I was learning and I wanted to make sure that it translated with the people that I was close to, right? So I knew that not everybody was going to go enroll into a clinical mental health counseling program, or maybe didn't even have the funds to take a workshop or anything. So let me do my part by just taking what I've learned and making it more like palatable, using my personality, creating free content that resonates with the people that I'm closest to. And then from there, it just kind of like took off.
And you did a segment with Tahari, right?
Yeah, the Taraji. Yeah, Taraji.
Taraji, I always mess up her name. Golly.
Yeah.
I'm so mad that I do that. So what was that like? You guys talked about grief and loss, right?
Yes, 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 yes. So we were discussing grief and loss in relation to sudden death. Our segment covered the loss of Pop Smoke as well as the loss of King Von, and then we went into what it's like to deal with that experience. It can be very traumatic for a number of people, and so I was very, very grateful to be able to be like share my expertise on that platform, to be able to provide like different perspectives on how to work through the grief cycle, because I think oftentimes we only look at like the 5 stages of grief, which is, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. But there's so many things that happen in the in between. And then, as people of color, we're really big on like the Black church, or just having to find ways to build resiliency through our spirituality and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. Because, a lot of people also fail to realize that grief is more than just losing an individual, but it's also like the loss of opportunity, the loss of time, the loss of like self, maybe even identity. So, like that disenfranchised grief as well.
That's good for people listening, because a lot of times people only think of it as a person losing a person in the world. But I think there's so many different, especially as we develop in the different stages, and even as we're growing. Like if we're trying to take care of our wellness, and then we're not able to connect with people like we did before, and feel guilty for trying to like take care of ourselves. There's so many different things and struggles that we have. And when I think about like when I seen you and her together, I know she does a lot of work around equity and equality. And I know like that's your passion. Tell people why that's so important, especially when it comes to mental health, especially in the Black community.
Yes, so when we think about equality, we are wanting something that is similar across the board. The same rights that other cultures get, we want that as well. But it's not enough just to seek equality. We also need to have equity as well, making sure that we are closing the gap in between like where another culture group is in comparison to us. So like if everybody is going to start at a certain starting point, we need to be starting at that starting point as well. That not only looks like in the healthcare space, but as well as educations, becoming business owners, building generational wealth. We have to find ways to close the gap and tend to the needs of our community as well.
Yeah, that's good. And when it comes to the mental health field or the mental health world, I feel like there are so many gaps, and I didn't because I've always worked in nonprofits. So I've worked in agencies where I was doing a lot of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like housing and shelters. So I never really sat with people like that and got deeper into it. I was getting them housing, getting them the toiletries and stuff, right? And so when I became a therapist in my own practice, I started to really see like, oh, therapy's not really accessible for us like that. Like, because I would just be like, oh, go to therapy. Because my first experience in therapy, fortunately for me, was good. So I'm basing it off of my experience. And then, me just telling people to go to therapy, but not recognizing like it's really not that easy. It's not that easy. How do you feel about that? Because you're like lightening up right now.
Oh my gosh, because like when we talk about disparities, right? Because it's one thing to say go to therapy, but do you have access to therapy? And as a matter of fact, there's these ABCs that I do when it comes to finding the right therapist. We understand that not everybody's going to be able to find the one, but there are just a number of things that we need to consider. The first one being accessibility. So are you going to find an individual that is in close proximity to you? How do you even have reliable transportation to get to them? Now, because of COVID, we're able to do things virtually, whether it's like through console or Zoom or other platforms. I think there's like Simple Practice or whatever like that. But one thing that we forget, do our clients even have access to a working computer or even a smartphone that gives them access to, or even privacy, right? Yes. Or even reliable Wi-Fi. Because, oftentimes a lot of like impoverished communities, they lean more on the library. Well, the library is closed because of the pandemic. So you're literally cutting them off in this society where like they're really trying to figure out their way. So you have accessibility, budget. a lot of times individuals may be having fees like 120, 150 or whatever. Well, if I can barely afford to buy bread for my child, or if I'm on food stamps or whatever like that, what makes you think I'm going to be able to afford that? Obviously, there's like sliding scales, or maybe even like your EAPs, which are employee assistance programs and whatnot. But does the regular individual have a benefits package that includes that? That includes your HSA or your FSA. You know, usually like your regular like grocery store clerk, or maybe even like your gas clerk or whatever the case may be, they may not come, those positions don't come with benefits package. So that's something to consider. And then like D, you would look for clinical expertise and whatnot, but clinical expertise that looks like, you know, does your clinician specialize in trauma or like sexual abuse, or maybe even like drug and alcohol dependence, or like all of these different things, are spirituality related issues. But a number of clinicians that are servicing this particular community, they may not have the clinical expertise or even the multicultural competency to be able to meet the needs of these individuals within this community. And then, oh, go ahead. And then D would be duration. So depending on whether or not you would like to do short-term or long-term therapy, of course, we want our clients to stay with us as long as possible. But a lot of our clients, or at least like the clients that I see, they have other life roles. They're taking care of their kids, or maybe even having to go to work and be the breadwinner of the home. Or maybe even if you're working with a teenager, they're helping their parents raise their siblings as well. So understanding like all of the things, looking at your client, or looking at our target population from a holistic perspective rather than just from a clinical standpoint. So that's what I mean in terms of like equality and equity, because there's so many things that we deal with overall.
Yeah, I love that. And you know, the reason why you started your YouTube channel was because you wanted people to have resources and like knowledge around different things around the mental health field. I started going live before my podcast. I started going live on YouTube after I started my practice, recognizing there's so many people that are struggling. And I can't just keep saying go to therapy, right? Like, I think therapy is great, but I also know how hard it can be for some people. And so like, I really, really want people that are listening. And I say this all the time, like, just because you can't have a therapist doesn't mean you have to stop your healing process. It doesn't have to go on pause. And that's why like people like Sierra, I have them come on, you know, to talk about the different resources that they have that are available, because I think it's important for us to take our power back and decolonize what mental health looks like. It's not just psychiatry, mental health. There's so many other things that we can start to look at and reshape the way that we're looking at it.
Yes.
Yes. Which brings me to your course, right? You have a course and it's around the wellness wheel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I talk about a lot. I think it's important. One of the things I do with my clients is I, you know, like I'm struggling, I don't know where, and I'll break out the wheel. All right, okay, what's happening in this area? What's happening in this area? I think it's powerful when we are able to have some kind, even if they're, you know, I tell people, even if you're not in therapy, this is something you can Google and print out and just go through each section and ask yourself what it looks like. Let me just pull up the wheel. And I want you to tell us about the course that you have.
Definitely. So while you're pulling
So this is the wheel for people. Did it come up?
Yep, it did.
Okay, so this is the wheel right here. But tell people a little bit about your course and why you created it.
Yeah, so it's called the Mental Wellness Toolkit, which addresses the 8 different dimensions of an individual. And so the reason why I created it was because, like I mentioned, I know that individuals can't afford like multiple series of sessions, but here are like micro psychoeducational workshops that were created with individuals in mind. And so they have the video as well as the text that's connected to it. And then for right now, I'm doing like this promotional thing where every time you buy a course, or if anybody orders the course, they also get like a free therapist, crew neck or t-shirt, whatever they like. But yeah, so I think some of the topics include navigating anxiety, finding work-life harmony, or navigating conflict within the workplace. Also have a session for individuals who may not want to become mental health professionals, but also want to become mental health advocates and how to tend to their own mental wellness in that process as well. I also discuss like work-life harmony or just creating a harmonious life, because there's this misconception that we need to aim for balance, but like finding harmony in all of those 8 areas of your life really does help with your mental health overall.
Yeah, when one area is off, like, if finances is off, it's going to feel like everything's crumbling. And I think when it feels like everything's crumbling, a lot of times we stop being solution focused, we kind of get stuck. And so imagine if you like had, oh, this is what it is, it's this area, because we can get into an all or nothing mentality, or we can allow like that negative thing to just feel like it's overwhelming us and not see like the other strengths that we have available to us.
Definitely. That's such a, normal or consistent cognitive distortion, that black or white way of thinking. Yeah.
So that's available at Legacy Speaks, and it's SPKS. And so for people listening to this on the audio, SPKS, legacyspeaks.com, right? Did I say it right? .com. Yeah. .com. You can find like all of her information there. Now tell me about your practice, and like for people that are in Georgia, like how can they connect with you?
Definitely. So if anybody is looking to do virtual sessions, as of right now, you can like find me on my website, or you can even find me at inclusivetherapist.com or Psychology Today. Those are the 2 directories. And I believe I'm on blackfemaletherapist.com as well. You can find me on any of those 3 directories. I'm currently contracted with a private practice, so feel free to reach out to me and I'll be able to respond back to you with like services and fees and whatnot. And for anybody who is in need of like sliding scale fees, or basically like sessions that are at a discounted rate, feel free to just let me know. But they're based upon need. All right, just I have to put that out there, because individuals be like, in need. All right, sis, are you in need or?
Yes. That's good. Because you talk so much about equity and equality. If there's somebody listening and they're feeling kind of inspired by you and your story, and they are looking for what's the first step I should take because I'm struggling right now, and I can't afford a therapist, what would you say to them?
I would definitely say take time to pinpoint your needs. I feel like we overlook the needs assessment process over time. And so, like, we know that we need help, but we really may not have the language for it, or we just don't know where to start. So, reach out to any therapist, even if you feel as though you can't afford them. There are a number of therapists that do free consultations. That way, they can kind of point you in the right direction. Also, I want to let people know that in those consultations, you can also ask for referrals as well. There is an online directory called Open Path Collective that a lot of people may not even know about, but that's a place for individuals who are needing like clinicians who provides self-pay rates. They can go there and find a therapist that is specific for them. They do it like on a regional basis. So like if you're in Georgia or in California or whatever, go online, develop a profile, and they will help you as well. Now, if you feel like you currently don't need to be in therapy or anything like that, feel free to like check out a lot of self-help books, subscribe to a number of podcasts like Celeste the Therapist podcast, or even the Legacy Speaks podcast. There's so many resources out there. I think we forget that we live in a digital age, and there's so much that is readily available to us. We have Dr. Google readily available. And so please take advantage of that. And then also too, just know that you aren't alone. You may feel physically alone in this moment because of the pandemic, but just know that you're not alone. There's always somebody who is experiencing something similar to what you're dealing with.
Yeah, we do. I think we forget that we're not alone. And we also, I didn't hear about Open Path Collective. This is my first time hearing about it. So I'm definitely going to put that up. So Open Path Collective. also what she says around making sure that we are, I know, look, somebody's already on your site. It's so, yeah, your site's beautiful. And I think we forget about the other resources, which is why I say, like, let's decolonize what mental health looks like. Let's look at it. And because, like, just because you're not in therapy doesn't mean you're not working on yourself, doesn't mean that things stop. There's podcasts. And obviously, I know that I'm not a replacement for therapy. I know Sierra's podcast, which we're going to talk about next, is not a replacement for therapy. But it does shift your thought process a little bit. It helps you be able to, like, try to think about things in a different way. And I think that's so important to think about. And I know so many of us have never, like, seen our caregivers push the needle forward. That being in that environment or that space of seeing people stuck is a familiar space to be in for so many people. The idea of, like, moving up, and I'm not saying, like, better than, but moving up as far as your wellness is concerned can feel hard. You can feel like you're leaving people. And so, like, just know that it's okay. Like, anytime you're leveling up, it's going to feel hard. But, especially if you're striving for peace, sometimes that has to happen.
Yes. Yes.
Make sense?
Love it.
Yes. All right. So tell us about Legacy Speaks podcast, please.
Yes. So I started off in YouTube land, and I was just like, man, these conversations can go farther. Every Thursday I do a thing called Therapy Thursday. Sometimes the day may switch. I may do, like, a Wellness Wednesday or a Transformation Tuesday. It really just
see that I could tell you in the you're a creator guy. You're like a jack of all trades. I know you are, because of like, you're playing with the words, because you're in the, I know it. I see you. You're like one of those creators that be like, you just be spitting it out, like a I'm like, dang, that was good. I like to play with the words. That's good. Go ahead, girl.
Because it really just depends,
I know.
As therapists, like, our schedules are crazy. So I'm always down to collab, So whatever day somebody's readily available. If it's a Friday, then let's do a Feel Good Friday.
But your words, the way you use it, don't try to just throw it out there like that. You make it sound so dope. Like, a Feel Good. I would have never thought that. I'm like, listen, I'm coming on Friday. I might have to use that, but I'm gonna quote you. I'm like, no, Sierra. I'm inviting my girl Sierra. We're going to Feel Good on Friday. We're gonna do it like that. I'm gonna have to go and see what you're working with, so I can work with it too.
Girl, because right now I got this makeup on, and if it was Friday, it would be a fresh face Friday. It'll be anything, okay? Shenanigans Saturday, self-care Sunday. We can do anything.
I love it. I got to get my creative juices going. I'm only creative literally with mental health. Outside of that, I need resources.
But anyway, so, like, the podcast is basically our conversations that I have on YouTube, and then, like, on my Instagram lives, and I just throw them. I take the audio and just wanting to take the audience a little bit further, because I understand not everybody has time to watch videos and whatnot. And so I had a couple of friends that were like, you know what, I just have the video playing so I can listen to it as it's going. And so I was just like, well, let me just create a podcast for individuals who just don't have time to watch a video. So at least they can still have access to the content.
And then what can people get? Like, who is this podcast for? Like, who's your ideal audience?
Yeah, definitely. So if you're a person of color, this is your thing. But I think with the podcast, it's specific to individuals that are seeking purpose, especially when it comes to, like, entrepreneurship or just, like, business related stuff. Because I think, like, we as, like, Black business owners, we forget to tend to our own mental health and whatnot.
Yeah.
So even though I'm doing a lot of collabs with other clinicians, there will be episodes with me just talking about, like, mental health from, like, again, the 8 dimensions of wellness, financial peace, spirituality, environmental wellness, like, social wellness, all of those different things. So
it's for everybody, girl. We all need this in our life. So wait, I can't let you go without telling us why you call it Legacy Speaks.
Yeah. So there's a quote by Dr. Maya Angelou. Actually, it's a quote of a quote from Oprah, or basically, she was telling Oprah that, your legacy is what you do, is how you make people feel. It's you just like who you are. And so I'm just like, I asked myself, like, what will my legacy say? Like, what will my legacy speak in the near future? Everybody's just so focused on today, but what can you do today that will transcend generations, that will like make a lasting impact even after you leave? And so, yeah,
I love it. And I feel like if we all like start to understand our purpose, I think everything is connected to someone else. And what I do today, I know it's going to impact somebody tomorrow. So I think that's good. That's so amazing. You're so amazing. Yeah. Was this okay? Was I hard on you, Sierra?
No, I loved it. I was just like, yes, let's go.
I appreciate you taking time out. You're really amazing. I felt like I was talking to my coworker, my girl from down the street. So I appreciate your transparency. I think that there's so many good nuggets on here. I think even if people aren't struggling, if they know someone who's struggling, they keep throwing out, go to therapy, and just kind of really thinking about all of the different layers there are to therapy. And it's different. It hits different coming from two therapists saying it, because it's not like we're hating on therapists, because, we're not like sitting here hating on therapists. We really do believe in therapy, but we also like, it wasn't until I went into this private practice world, I recognized like, oh my gosh, like, and I think that's kind of what led us into creating these platforms for people to get information, because we're just so passionate about helping our people. So she is amazing. So tell people how they can reach you.
Definitely. So y'all already know the website, legacyspks.com, but feel free to connect via Instagram or Facebook. I think I'm on Twitter as well. I'm starting to get on Pinterest too. So you can find me at legacyspks on everything. Yeah.
So I'm everywhere, but Pinterest, I just post on it. I still don't really know how to use it, but people will be following me on there, but I just keep posting stuff. But everything else I interact with. Pinterest, I really don't know how to interact with. So I'm just there, like chilling. Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your information. I've learned a lot. Like, I know about some of the stuff you talked about today, so I'm grateful. So I know if I learn, my audience is going to learn, and we're grateful. I'm saying thank you on behalf of everybody, because I get emails and stuff about people, so I already know I'm going to get them about you. I hope you have an amazing night.
Thank you. You too.
Oh, wait. Did you want to say anything else before I leave? Sorry, I didn't even give you a chance to do that.
Okay. I'm like, what nuggets can I drop? I would definitely say, for anybody who is starting their wellness journey, just know that it's a journey. We understand, like with every road trip, there is like billboards and detours and scenic routes, and maybe even potty breaks. So I definitely encourage you to make this journey your own, like make this drive your own. So yeah.
See, God knew I needed to get that last nugget out of you. Thank you, girl.
No problem.
Bye. She's amazing. I learned a lot. I'm gonna have to start posting this site that she said. I'm gonna have to start posting this site, because I didn't know that there was a way for people to find people with sliding scales. So thank you all so much for rocking out with me and Sierra. That was amazing. I love talking to people, but it's dope when I get to talk to another therapist. I don't have therapists on too often, and when I do, it's always a good time. So we'll be back Wednesday. Me and Jeff are going to be on answering your questions about relationships. So if you go to celestetherapist.com/podcast, you'll be able to ask your question, and we'll answer them. The questions are already coming in. So I'll see you Wednesday. Then I'll be back Thursday with somebody else that's doing something to empower the lives of others. Thank you all so much, and I will talk to you.
It's 65 days, but I treat every day like it's my last. I'm only concerned with building on the future, because I can't change my past. Positive vibes for positive lives. She just giving you that truth and shifting your mind. It's more mental than you realize. It's up to you to take control, cause this world is cold and negativity gon' take its toll. Now we've been told any day could be your last. I'm embracing every moment and I cherish every laugh, every smile, every hug, every kiss, every touch, every person in my life that I care about and love. But wait, maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity, and make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with Celeste, the therapist. Let's go.